Hello everyone, this is JGE. I am now wearing a different hat. I was a discussant and now I am a moderator. The topic today is institutional crypto finance in Asia. And traditional financial community has been embracing crypto, digital assets in droves recently. The big impetus came from BTC Cash ETF. ETF saw an inflow of more than $5.5 billion. Bitcoin is now the 10th largest asset. This will be more discussed later in a different session. But there are other noteworthy developments around the globe. Stable coins are recently adopted as a payment and settlement currency. STOs backed by real assets are being developed. Central banks are experimenting with CBDC. All these developments herald new dawn of finance. In all of this development, where Asia fits in, how institutions in Asian countries and regions, including Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Korea, are embracing or responding to this fast-paced development. What are the benefits and dangers of the institutional adoption of digital assets and Web3 in Asia? First question, what is the status, trend, impediment, or use cases of institutional adoption of digital assets in your own jurisdiction?
I'm Taiki from Tokyo, so I want to talk about Japan's market. So similar like global trend, in Japan, real-world asset tokenization is now booming. So now mega bank like MUFG, SMBC, and securities company like Nomura and Daiwa now provides a real-world asset tokenization service for institutions. And large enterprises like Mitsui and Sony now issue real-world asset token to retail users. But I see several differences between global market and Japanese market. So first thing is like the type of asset. So in Japan, most of the real-world asset token is real estate securities. I think the huge portion of global market real-world asset is like the corporate bond, government bond, tokenized fund raised by the asset management companies. And also, I also want to mention about the Web3 crypto market in Japan as well. So definitely gaming is now huge in Japan. So large kind of gaming companies like Square Enix, Konami now implemented some NFT blockchain games in Japan. And also Layer 1, gaming-specific Layer 1 blockchain, Oasis, now involves a lot of enterprises. So initial 25 node operators includes 3 largest telecommunication companies like NTT, SoftBank, and KDDI. And also, at the last, I also want to mention about the recent announcement by Sony. Sony now launching the new public blockchain named Sonium. Many developers are really excited about that because its launching partner includes notable infrastructure, blockchain infrastructure like Chainlink, Oracle Service, the Graph indexing protocol, and the Circle stablecoin companies. So developers can easily develop their application on blockchains, and also enterprise are also excited about that because it's public blockchain, but operated by Sony, so it's trustworthy for everyone. So yeah, so there are so many kind of enterprise activities, and since Japanese enterprises tend to watch other companies and just follow them, so I think the more enterprises coming in this market.
Anna, what is your experience in Hong Kong?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Yi. So I will cover more in Hong Kong. So first, maybe let me quickly introduce what Hashkey is. So we are a leading financial institution focusing in providing crypto business. So we have a like global operation with a focus in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Japan. So in Hong Kong, we are a full licensed crypto asset company, which means whatever the Hong Kong regulators issue that license, we already have. So speaking of the regulation or the trend in Hong Kong, I think the institutional adoption is the mainstream is here. So I think the two main regulator governing like the securities and futures market, which we call SFC, and also another is HKMA, which is the central bank of like a central bank equivalent authority in Hong Kong. So I think since 2022, Hong Kong government like issued the position paper to express the ambition to be for Hong Kong to be a international financial hub in crypto. So since then, a lot of positive policies were issued gradually. For example, I think last year in 2023, so the SFC issued two guidance in guiding, I think, tokenization, especially in SFC authorized the product like money market fund and ETF. And just 6 months right after that, that policy being issued, Hong Kong officially launched 6 ETFs, 3 BTC-based, 3 ETF-based ETF. I think that's the first of its kind in not just the Asia. So luckily, I think Hashkey, we are the co-manager of 2 of these ETFs. So we were deeply involved in the whole transactions and all the communications. We found like really proud. So just right after that, I think it's last Wednesday. So HKMA launched a project called Ensemble. This is a new wholesale central bank digital currency project to support the development of the tokenization market in Hong Kong. So this project seeks to explore innovative financial market infrastructure and that will facilitate seamless interbank settlement of tokenized money through WCBDC. So I think this also echoed the concept of unified ledger and the Finternet raised by BIS. I still remember in May we talked about this, Dr. Yi, so I read the paper thoroughly. I think since this May, not just the BIS, I think together with a lot of central banks also include Korea, like Bank of Korea. So I understand there's a project named Agora. Right, Agora. So I think this Agora project is to, I think it's also just putting all the tokenized deposit central WCBDCs and also a real world asset on the same unified programmable platform. So I think the HKMA's project Ensemble also echoed this point. So luckily that Hashkey is also one of the member included in the architecture community of this ensemble. So we look forward that in the next few months, we will be able to provide a more experimental program, tokenize the project maybe to the public, right?
Dr. Kim?
As important issues of institutional adoption of digital assets in Korea, I'd like to point out 3 issues: tokenization of payment, corporate bank accounts linked with crypto exchanges, and the introduction of Bitcoin spot ETFs. The current South Korean administration announced that it will regulate crypto asset under the new Virtual Asset Act and security tokens under the amended Capital Market Act, thereby establishing a kind of dual regulatory framework. But when tokenized payments are used on blockchain platforms, such as BIS, CBDC project, as Anna mentioned, or BlackRock Speedo, the regulatory boundaries between the Virtual Asset Act and Capital Market Act will be blurred. For example, if BlackRock Speedo were to be regulated in Korea, tokenized bond would be regulated under the Capital Market Act, while CBDC as a payment instrument, I want to talk about the stablecoin as a payment instrument will be regulated by the Virtual Asset Act. So the tokenization of payment is expected to converge the dual regulatory framework. I mean the legacy and crypto, regulatory framework, and also it will, I think, that accelerate the participation of large financial institutions in the digital asset market. And as for corporate bank accounts linked with crypto exchange, large legal entities, including corporations or organizations, are not permitted to open bank accounts for virtual asset transactions in Korea. This restriction appears to have been made in, I think, back in 2018. At that time, corporate virtual asset transactions were highly likely to be classified as suspicious transaction in terms of AML related to money laundering. Now that the regulatory framework for corporate virtual asset transaction is very well established, so I think that there is a need to gradually allow corporate accounts for virtual asset transactions in Korea. And finally, I would like to mention that Bitcoin spot ETF. The introduction of Bitcoin spot ETF is anticipated to significantly broaden the base of Bitcoin investors or other crypto investors, including large asset managers and other institutional players in Korea. However, the Korean government cannot be allowed this because of some kind of regulatory obstacles. There's three key institutional challenges. First is underlying asset issue. Second issue is custody issue. And the last thing is anti-fraud issue.
Fantastic. So my name is Moses, and I represent Anchorage Digital in Asia. Anchorage Digital is purpose-built for institutions to participate in digital assets. We are the first and still only crypto-native bank licensed nationally in the US. And I'm happy to announce that recently we received our in-principle approval in Singapore. So my perspective is as an American headquartered company operating in Singapore, and what our view is and our experience is operating in Singapore. So one thing to note is that MAS, the regulator in Singapore, is responsible for all financial services in Singapore. So there is only one regulator, which makes things a little bit more simple. MAS also has in its founding charter to be a competitive global financial hub. So I think that's kind of unique perspective to have of the MAS, because not only are they focused on regulation, protection, they are also the central bank and have equal mandate to grow the financial industry in Singapore. What makes crypto interesting is that it is global by nature. So Bitcoin is the same Bitcoin in Singapore as it is in the US. What we've seen over the many years is that many jurisdictions, many countries have become more insular when it comes to regulating crypto. And a lot of it has to do with the frenzy that happened on trading. Obviously, we have had issues as a nascent industry with challenges of a growing industry. But having said that, what's happening in Singapore is a focus on innovation. So some of the things that I can point as examples would be MAS's direction in moving larger financial institutions in adopting innovative ways of upgrading their infrastructure. So things like Project Guardian, Project Ubin are the ones that have developed first from closed blockchain ecosystems, then moving on to public blockchains with controls, and we'll see how things develop from there. So with that, MAS actually regulates as similar to Korea, security tokens as well as what we call digital payment tokens. And the important thing for me operating in Singapore is that MAS, when it comes to digital payment tokens, has a framework-based asset support. So what that means is that many different jurisdictions would have regulators view digital assets in ways where they would have a prescriptive approach or a framework-based approach. A prescriptive approach would be a regulator saying that certain digital assets are approved and only those are approved. A framework-based approach would be where there are guidelines and the service providers would be responsible for following those guidelines and have more flexibility in innovation. So the way Singapore has approached is initially prescriptive, then pivoted to framework-based. So that is extremely helpful for crypto-native companies like ourselves in fostering innovation and supporting projects. So that's the main thing that I would like to relay to everyone is that Singapore, first and foremost, is developing as a global financial center adopting crypto and crypto technologies, and it is very forward-thinking in innovation and helping companies, crypto-native companies like us, help the entire ecosystem develop.
Introduction, I'm Jonathan. I represent L2 Capital. We're an investment firm that's both venture side as well as liquid side of the business. So my perspective will be more around capital markets and investment, slightly different from the distinguished panel here. But maybe first thing I'll say is that having spent 15 years in traditional finance before entering the crypto world 4 years ago, I can say from experience that alpha decay is real. So many investors and LPs that we speak to are looking for alternative sources of alpha. So that's why crypto is very much interesting from an institutional perspective, because first and foremost is returns. Bitcoin, using that as a benchmark since 2017 until second quarter of this year, has returned 61.7% per annum, which is 4.4 times higher than S&P 500. Obviously, with crypto, there's risk. The volatility is 3.1 times higher, but still, the risk reward is still a good trade. And on the third point around opportunity set, there's over 14,000 listed tokens, and I'm sure many more to come. So LPs are looking for GPs to find alpha within this space. So in terms of the status of adoption, I'll share some figures for this as well. ETFs was much talked about. It's actually accumulated over $62 billion US dollars in terms of AUM across Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs in Hong Kong and US. So that's actually quite a large number because gold's at $115 billion today. So gold ETF's been around for over 20 years, crypto in its first year, so it's already 54% of the way there. And some of the largest holders of Bitcoin ETF is actually some of the most sophisticated investors, such as Millennium, which hold over $1 billion of it today. So that's on the passive side. I would say on the active side, some from information that I've seen, but maybe some of the panel here can also share their insights, is there's around $90 billion of AUM across, call it active managers, that's venture funds and liquid funds. Most of this is on the venture side. So overall, it's over $150 billion industry currently, and I do think the prospects for this is continually growing and quite bright. I think the factors are multiple-fold. The first one is the ETFs is a real big trigger because it allows traditional capital to enter the crypto space in a way that they're accustomed to. So I think that's number one. Number two is around some of the enterprises that are talking about tokenization and various applications of blockchain technologies. Number three is around regulation. I think some of the earlier panel also spoke about across Hong Kong, Japan, US, Korea developing as well, and Middle East certainly, an important hub. Regulation is providing more clarity. And I think lastly and most importantly is we're seeing an influx of human capital that's also improving in terms of the talent in the space. So that's crucial for development in this sector.
My next question is, what are the expected future prospects for institutional adoption in Asia?
So in Japan, I'm basically optimistic about the future of digital asset Web3 in Japan because Japanese government really pushed Web3 as one of the national digital transformation strategies by easing regulation. So for example, last year, stablecoin regulation was enforced in Japan, and now many large enterprises are comfortable to use stablecoin to build real-world use cases. And also, from this February, Japanese venture capital can invest to crypto tokens because of regulation change. So there are so many kind of regulation initiatives because Japanese ruling party, Liberal Democratic Party, issued Web3 white paper from back in 2022 and revised every year in order to support enterprise to use blockchain technologies. So yeah, overall, I'm very optimistic, but fair to say, there are several obstacles there. So first thing is like the maximum 55% capital gain tax for individual crypto investors. It's huge things. And also the ETF, Bitcoin ETF, Ethereum ETF has not happened in Japan yet because it requires regulation change. So yeah, there are still several challenges, but basically based on the government support and now enterprise are doing a lot of things, so I'm very optimistic.
Thank you. Anna?
Yeah, I hold the same view. I think generally it's positive, and it's definitely the trend because we are just in the right right timing. So now I think technology-wise, the infrastructure is matured enough. And then from like asset side, Web3 assets are looking into Web3, like investment from Web2. Web2 investors are looking for new asset class to be invested in. So definitely, I think the people now involved in this industry, we can be the bridge to connect both sides together. So, but for like a regulator side, I think securities token will be still like lead the way, right? So I also quickly looked into like the aspects that will be tested in the sandbox in Hong Kong. I think it covered the following 4 aspects. The first will be fixed income and investor fund product. So like previously we launched the spot ETF project. I think in the near future there will be a new asset like money market fund tokenization product. So the second item will be the liquidity management product like the repo and treasury management product. The third one will be in green and sustainable finance area, such as carbon credit, EV charging station, this kind of project. The fourth one will be the trade and supply chain finance, which is like, for example, trade finance and payment area. So in terms of the regulatory direction, I think it will cover the following aspect. So first, Hong Kong will be soon launching region for stablecoins. Second will be tokenize the bank deposit sandbox. Third will be the Hong Kong government will be regulating OTC business very soon. So the fourth will be, I think this is the direction to just harmonizing blockchain protocols to enable scale. So still, I think it's the right timing, but still at the very early stage. So we hope like more and more people, especially in the industry, like in the institutional finance area, will join us in putting this forward.
Thank you. Dr. Kim?
Yeah. First of all, as for global perspective, I think that the result of the U.S. presidential election will have significant impact on Korean market. If Donald Trump would be elected, I think the SEC cannot continue the current regulatory approach to crypto markets, so-called regulation by enforcement. If Kamala Harris would be elected, I think she has no agenda or plan right now, but so we should closely monitor the dynamics between the new president and other very influential Democratic, big shots like Senator Elizabeth Warren or SEC Chairman Gary Gensler. So, and as for Korean market, I am positive, very positive about institutional adoption of digital assets in Korea. I told you about the current problems, current challenges and problems of Korea. I told you three things: tokenization of payment, corporate bank accounts linked with crypto exchanges, and the introduction of Bitcoin spot ETFs. Three issues I think that can be solved first by interpretation of current rules and regulation, and second, we are planning lots of legislation, like second stage Virtual Asset Act. So with the new legislation, I think the three problems will be solved. In that sense, I'm so positive.
So for institutions, specifically Asia-based institutions, to continue participate in digital assets, we believe that we're at an inflection point where enough regulatory framework as well as infrastructure is available for institutions to start participating. The reason I say that is because up to now, even basic things like private key management were not well understood by institutions and not understood enough to scale. For example, there's a concept of proof of exclusive control when it comes to digital assets. When I talk about proof of exclusive control to many of crypto participants, then I'll have blank faces looking back at me. What is it? So this is a very simple concept coming from traditional finance, which has to be implemented in digital assets. So we're starting there. So I'm very encouraged that we have regulatory framework and infrastructure that is prepared sufficiently for institutions to start participating in scale.
Actually, I would echo some of Moses' point as I sort of think about any industry. It's a function of builders that build, the venture capital that supports these builders, the public capital that provides liquidity and the capital to recycle, and obviously all within a regulatory framework, right? That's sort of the success of any industry. And I feel like for us in the crypto space, these are all the building blocks that's already starting to get forward momentum. And we sort of look at some of the developments in Hong Kong, Japan, and in Hong Kong specifically, they started implementing the Web3 task force in June of 2023. Virtual asset license started to be granted as well, and there's close to a dozen of them today. So I think that's all in the providing forward momentum to the space. And from an institutional adoption standpoint, what's an interesting statistic is, actually I was looking this up just earlier, is that there's 29 listed companies across 7 jurisdictions that hold Bitcoin as part of treasury management. The largest in the world is obviously MicroStrategy, which is market cap's 23 billion against 8 billion of Bitcoin. So they're trading at over 2 times NAV. So it's provided actually very tremendous equity results for their shareholders. So nonetheless, I do believe this trend is going to continue. We've seen that in Japan, we've seen that in Hong Kong as well, and actually more recently in Bangkok and Thailand as well, sort of corporations holding Bitcoin as treasury management. And overall, I think as we think about the industry, I think we will see a J-curve, but the catalyst or inflection point is probably going to be that mass use case that we're all waiting for. Much like ChatGPT was for AI, I think crypto will have its moment. Don't have the crystal ball, but I hope it comes sometime soon.
Thank you so much. It is very interesting to hear various perspectives from different jurisdictions. And one thing I find it quite promising is that everyone here believes that the institutional adoption will continue and regulatory changes will accommodate the current development and more positive news are waiting for us. So, so I guess that's a very promising conclusion, I would say, from all these distinguished panelists. And I thank you very much for your participation. And I'm sure that if we have more time, we would have done much more interesting discussions. But unfortunately, we have other panelists waiting. So let me stop here. Thank you very much.